In this video, I'm going to become the richest and strongest player on this Minecraft server. And we're not just talking about diamonds, I know, I'm talking about gold armor, the best tools, strength potions, elytras, infinite golden apples, shulkers filled to the brim with loot, and unlimited totems. To kick things off, I decided to start with a creeper farm, because without it I'd be flying around without any rockets once I get an elytra. Plus, I'll need stacks of TNT for future builds, so this farm is going to be a game changer. Luckily, I already have most of the materials I need to build it, but there's one problem. I don't have any cats. I searched the nearby village, running around like a madman, but couldn't find any cats. Seriously, not a single one. I was starting to wonder if I'd somehow scared them all away. While I was on the hunt for cats, I decided to start building the farm anyway. I picked a nice spot next to my base, right on the river, and it was the perfect place, except there was one tiny issue. I had to clear some of the water out so the creepers could flow through smoothly. Not the most fun part of the job, but it had to be done. So after getting the structure built, I added an AFK platform and hoped for the best. Time to see if this farm actually works. After realizing my creeper farm was a no-go, I decided it was time to go mining instead. I needed a load of diamonds for all the gear that I could ever dream of, lapis for enchanting, and redstone for the upcoming farms. But, as you know, mining isn't always smooth sailing. Everything was going fine until I missed a few water buckets, and I found myself in a bit of trouble, and then out of nowhere there was this enderman. I accidentally looked at it, and before I knew it, I was getting pretty low. I tried to escape, but then a skeleton sniped me from the shadows, and just like that, I was dead. My heart dropped. All my loot was right next to lava. I was worried and rushed back, praying that my gear had survived. Miraculously, most of my stuff was all good, so I quickly re-geared, got back to mining, and stumbled upon a ton of skulk, but luckily no ancient city. It was a bit of a letdown as well, but it would have been awesome to explore, except I don't feel like I'm ready for that kind of challenge just yet. So I head back to the base and I stash my loot for safekeeping. I also craft some more iron armor since my current gear was looking pretty worse for wear and had fallen into lava. Next on my quest to become the strongest player, I need to gather materials for a raid farm. This will not only give me infinite totems, making me basically unkillable, but it'll also give me infinite emeralds for trading with villagers to help me build my god set. Luckily, I had most of what I needed, but I was missing a couple ingredients. One of them was kelp, so I planted some right next to my creeper farm, allowing them to grow most of the time while I'm in the area. And while waiting for the kelp to grow, I rummaged through all my chests and managed to craft more of the items I required for the farm. But soon I hit another wall. I needed observers, which meant I had to grab some quartz, so it was time to go to the nether. I set up a nether portal inside of a villager house because why not, and after lighting it, I stepped through to find myself in the most dangerous biome, a soul sand valley. This place can be deadly, so I had to bridge over to some quartz, all while keeping an eye out for ghast and other dangers lurking in the area. I quickly snagged the quartz and then bolted back to the portal. There was no way I was sticking around. Back in the overworld, I crafted the observers and harvested the rest of the kelp I needed. Finally, I had everything to build the raid farm, all packed nice and neatly into a chest and ready to go. With the raid farm on the horizon, I realized I needed to build another farm first, which is an ominous bottle farm. Luckily, I already had a lot of the materials stashed away in my chest monster, but to make this farm work, I need to find a pillager outpost. So no outpost means no ominous bottles, so I started asking around, and eventually someone piped up, claiming they knew where one was, but it was near spawn, which is over 7,000 blocks away. So back to the nether I went, ready to dig out a tunnel all the way to spawn. The journey was long, about 900 blocks in the nether, but I was determined to make this ominous bottle farm a reality, even if it meant spending the whole time digging through the nether, so I just tunneled away. When I finally made it to spawn, I couldn't believe my eyes. It had transformed since the start of the season. I ran into some players I hadn't met before, and they showed me their farms and shop that was being made. Also, in spawn there were huge signs, and it was pretty cool. So with all the netherrack that I had from digging out that tunnel, I couldn't resist but getting up to some mischief, so I built my name in big letters over the lake. Now, I'm no pixel art expert, but I think it turned out alright. But as I was making my way back to the portal, I fell into a huge ravine. If I don't hit this water bucket clutch, I am done for, and there's no way I want to walk all the way back. But luckily, I'm a pro gamer and I hit the clutch. I survived the fall, but my heart was still racing, so I quickly made my way back to the portal and sprinted all the way back to my base. Once there, I cleaned out my inventory and loaded up with everything I'll need for the ominous bottle farm, and then I had to travel all the way back once again. I jumped through the portal, but I went through the wrong one. I ended up in some random cave, but I managed to find my way to the surface, and I began my journey to the coordinates of the pillager outpost that I'd been given. But once I got there, I was in an ocean, and there was no pillager outpost. So I asked again, and he said he might have sent the wrong coordinates. So I got some new ones. I went to the new ones, and still no outpost. After a couple more attempts, they finally gave me the correct coordinates. And that time, they were actually right. I found the pillager outpost. Finally, when I eventually arrived at the outpost, ready to build the farm, I had to set my spawn, because my armor wasn't the best, and I knew I'd be facing a ton of pillagers. So I charged in, and I made it to the top of the tower, lighting it up with torches as I went. But soon as I tried to head back down, I was ambushed by a horde of pillagers. I had no choice but to run for it. I jumped out of the window of the outpost, and I water bucketed on half a heart. I burrowed into the ground to heal. Once I was all healed up, I began taking down the pillagers, as I removed the bottom of the outpost, because the next step was clearing a large area around the outpost to ensure that the pillagers would spawn properly. This was a bit annoying because pillagers were constantly shooting at me, forcing me to stop and fight them off. I thought that 3 stacks of cooked potatoes would be plenty of food, but I chewed through them way too quickly. On one side of the outpost there was a river, and I needed to fill it in with all the dirt that I had mined from the other side, but eventually I ran out of food and found myself on half a heart. I decided that the best thing to do was just do a hunger reset. I knew it would add another death to my stats, putting me on 3 deaths, but I figured once these farms are done, I would not be dying anymore. So after the reset, I pushed through and finished working on the farm. When I went to do a test run, I went AFK for a bit to see how it worked. But I came back and someone had tried to rob me by stealing all the ominous bottles, but they had closed off the kill chamber and killed the iron golem, and they had gotten killed by a pillager and lost all their stuff. So when I came down to find the golem killed and the kill chamber all blocked off, the pillagers were swarming me, and it was very chaotic, but I managed to fix everything, place down some slabs to prevent further incidents. I went AFK again for another test run, and this time it worked like a charm. I had heaps of ominous bottles and was finally on my way to becoming the richest player on the server. With all the ominous bottles acquired, it was time to hunt for some cats, as I'd need them to make my creeper farm work properly, so I set off to a nearby village hoping to find some cats. But after searching the village, I couldn't find any. I decided to head back to spawn so I can take the nether route back to my base, as it's way quicker. Once I was back at base, I know that I'll need a bunch of cobble for future builds, and it's just always handy, so I set up a cobblestone generator, as this would help me gather all the cobblestone I'll need for the next couple projects. It's a simple but effective design, and it'll be really useful until I get a fully automatic TNT cobble farm. I transferred all my materials from the chests into shulker box that I was gifted at the start of the season by the server owner, as this is going to allow me to move all the items way easier. With everything packed up, I boated out to a nearby deep ocean, which is close to a village that I had found earlier on, and it was time to get started on the raid farm. I followed IanXO4's raid farm tutorial, and I managed to build the entire farm really quickly and easily thanks to the tutorial. However, after finishing the build, I needed to get a villager to the bottom of the farm to actually start the raid. So I set off to the nearby village, and I borrowed a villager. He's going to be a crucial part of this farm. So I brought him back to the farm, successfully transported my new friend, and I imprisoned him in a glass box to keep him safe. So with this villager in place, I drank a ominous bottle and started up the farm. It worked like a charm. I was racking up levels, totems, emeralds, and redstone at a rapid rate. I stayed there fighting off waves of raiders to get as many totems as possible. One big step closer to becoming unkillable. And with all these emeralds, I am well on my way to trading with villagers to get some OP gear and enchantments. Next up on my agenda was a blaze farm. I need to get blaze rods for strength potions and eyes of ender, so it was time to head back to the nether. Fortunately, there's a fortress right next to my portal, so I made my way there ready to take on some blazes. Once I arrived, I wasted no time and started killing off blazes, collecting nether wart and looting chests. And I got super lucky and found a heap of diamonds. As soon as I found a blaze spawner and built a safe box right in front of it where I can use to escape and heal up. But as I tried to kill the blazes to clear the area, they just kept spawning. I realized I needed to retreat because my armor was nearly broken and my health was getting quite low. So I decided I'd come back when I had some better armor. So I jumped down to the lower level of the fortress, but unfortunately I missed my hay bale clutch, landing hard, and I took quite a bit of damage. And to make matters worse, a couple wither skeletons jumped me. They popped my totem, but I was glad that I built that raid farm earlier. I need every advantage that I can get. I quickly left the fortress before I could pop any more totems, but it was clear I need to get way better gear before I head back. I returned home and it was time to breed up some cows. I needed enough leather to craft a maxed out enchant table. I got to work breeding the cows while also doing some mining to gather extra diamonds, just in case my enchants didn't go as planned. I also went on an adventure exploring the land in search of more cows for leather, and once I had everything I needed I crafted up some shiny new diamond armor. I was finally ready to test my luck on the enchant table, so I crossed my fingers and started enchanting. Luck was on my side and I got pretty much max enchants on my gear, but there are still a few key ones missing. I was missing Mending, Thorns, Feather Falling, and Aqua Infinity, so I headed back to my raid farm to stock up on some more emeralds to mainly get the Mending books. So with a plan in mind, I went back to the raid farm ready to get all the emeralds I'd need. Later on, I went netherite mining, using all of the gunpowder from my creeper farm and beds from my sheep farm. Unfortunately, I had lost the footage, but let me tell you, it was an adventure. To play it safe, I decided not to wear my enchanted diamond armor as I want to ensure I could make it netherite before I started wearing it and risk losing it. As I explored, I was on the lookout for a bastion to find netherite upgrade template. After a while of searching, I spotted some signs of life. I saw a big pillar and a hole in the middle of a lava lake, so curious, I decided to check it out. I was suspecting it would be a portal, but when I got there, I was in for a surprise. There was nothing at the bottom, and before I could react, lava started pouring down on my head. My totem popped, but I managed to survive. I quickly boxed myself in to escape the lava, but I found myself stuck. I'd boxed myself in, surrounded by lava, with no way out. This was no good. I had no choice but to swim through the lava, popping another totem in the process just to gain the fire resistance, so talk about a close call. After escaping, I kept exploring and stumbled upon another fortress and a warped forest. Those would definitely come in handy for ender pearls later. Finally, after what felt like ages, I found a bastion. And not just any bastion, the big one, with the good loot, a treasure bastion. I just hoped no one had looted it and taken the upgrade template that I was looking for. I broke into the bastion and I quickly stacked up to start taking out the brutes, but I had to stay alert. Danger lurked around every corner in these bastions. As I was fighting, one of the brutes sneaked up behind me and knocked me into the others. My health drained so fast and I popped another totem. I'm so grateful for that raid farm. Those totems are saving my life. After that close call, I quickly equipped another totem and dashed past the piglins, jumping down to the loot area, but the danger wasn't over just yet. As I landed, a brute and magma cube tried to take me out, but they failed. I quickly checked the chest and struck gold, almost a full set of diamond armor. I equipped this new armor right away as it was way better than my iron gear. I also grabbed the gold blocks, and most importantly, I found the upgrade template that I had come for. Feeling victorious, I made my way out of the center of the bastion, but things took a turn for the worse. I fell in lava and was set on fire. I was alright at first, but then I was ambushed by a horde of piglins, and they drained my health quickly. I popped yet another totem. Luckily, I had brought 9 totems with me, but now it's down to just 5. I was really chewing through them. After leaving the bastion, I gathered some more blocks and began my journey back to the portal, but the adventure wasn't over yet. I boated off a cliff, but fell straight into lava when I broke my boat. It was kind of funny, and the best part, I survived without even popping a totem. I thought I was in the clear, but while speed bridging over a lava lake, I fell in, and that was my 5th totem pop in the nether. But thankfully, totems give you fire resistance after they pop, so I swam out just in time. Next, I tried to boat off another ledge, but I couldn't get into the boater on time, and I took a lot of fall damage, almost popping another totem, but somehow I managed to survive. I collected up some more blocks and continued my journey back to the portal. The adventure was getting pretty wild. Then came the moment of truth. I pulled off an insane boat clutch, just like dreamed, to cross a lava lake. I barely made it without falling in. After that adrenaline rush, I travelled on until I spotted the fortress next to my portal. I bridged up to it, dodging blaze shots all the way. Despite the constant fireballs, I managed to traverse the fortress without dying or popping any totems. I came pretty close though. Finally, I made it back through my portal, safely arriving back at base with the upgrade template in hand. Back at base, I smelted up the ancient debris and crafted the netherite ingots, but I decided I would save them for later because it was time to organise my chests. With everything all sorted out, I headed back over to the raid farm to gather up some more totems and emeralds, which I was going to use to buy some more mending books. After completing a few raids, I was feeling pretty good, but when I dropped down to the ocean floor, I noticed something pretty alarming. Someone had been watching my stream, looked at the coordinates, and came over to my raid farm. They seemed friendly enough, so I didn't fight them, but they stole some of my totems. I had a lot, so I let it slide for now. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, so I quickly headed back to my base, cautious of them possibly following me. Once I got back to my base, I did some more enchanting, but I kept looking over my shoulder. I was pretty worried about the player. Later on, I decided it was time to build my next farm, a turtle scoot farm. This would allow me to brew turtle master potions, which will give me resistance 4, meaning I'll only take 20% of the damage I normally would. So first, I crafted some shears and set out to gather some seagrass. With the seagrass, I hopped into a boat and began searching for turtles. Once I found a turtle out near the raid farm, I quickly got him in a boat and took him back to the base. Once back, I dug out a hole where I was going to build the turtle farm, and I began construction. I covered up the holes that the baby turtles would fall into because I want to focus on breeding the turtles first instead of getting the scoots. I needed a good number before I started the actual farm. So after I finished construction, I went back near the raid farm to collect up some more turtles, as it was time to expand my turtle family. I transported them all back to the farm, completed the collection system, and now it's time to begin breeding the turtles. Up next on my list was a gold farm. I started up by collecting all the lava from the lava farm and turning it into obsidian. I got almost a stack of obsidian because I needed it all for the build. After mining out all the obsidian, I rummaged through my chest to gather the rest of the necessary resources for NX04's design. For this farm, I'd need to get above the nether roof, so I set out to hunt for endermen with my looting 3 sword. This time, luck was also on my side, and I found an enderman and it dropped 3 pearls, which is more than I needed. So with these pearls in hand, I boated over to the raid farm where my turtles were. I bred the turtles and collected an egg because I need one for the gold farm, and I put the rest in the turtle farm to hatch for later. With all of the materials ready, it was time to head to the nether, but things took a turn for the worse when I fell and popped my first totem while searching for a good spot to build. After that panic, I finally made it to the perfect spot. My plan was to mine out 2 platforms, exactly 2 chunks by 2 chunks and 2 blocks high. After some intense mining, I placed a portal right in the middle and a turtle egg behind it to lure all the pigmen in. And now it's time for the real challenge. I nervously pearled onto the nether roof, and to my surprise, I actually nailed it first try. I built a tall pillar into the air and then constructed a glass bridge and portal. Now it was time for some maths. I went back to the overworld side and I had to build another portal to connect the two with a bridge. This way the zombie pigmen would travel between them pretty seamlessly. Once everything was set up, I headed to the nether roof side to test the farm, and wow, it worked like a charm. I sat there collecting loads and loads of gold and experience. Back in the overworld, I decided it was time for another mining session. I needed to stack up on diamonds and lapis to keep enchanting my gear, and I duplicated the netherite upgrade template and armor trims that I had collected early on. After gathering all the resources needed, I returned back to my base, ready to roll some boot trades, in hopes of getting Feather Falling 4. But things didn't go my way. I re-rolled and re-rolled, using up all 84 of my levels, and I did not get Feather Falling 4. It was so frustrating, but that's just luck sometimes. Not wanting to dwell on the disappointment, I decided to use the netherite I had gathered earlier to upgrade my armor and tools anyway. Now with my shiny new netherite gear, I felt way more comfortable out in the world, but I couldn't forget to add my little twist, so I made my armor look fancy with some nice emerald trims that I had found earlier. Next up on my list was to gather some apples. I grabbed a Fortune 3 hoe and headed out to break a ton of oak leaves. The goal of this was just to get as many apples as I could, and I would use these to craft golden apples. But after breaking loads of leaves, I finally checked my inventory and I only had 7 apples. This was a bit of a letdown, and I guess Fortune 3 just isn't as good on leaves. Feeling a bit defeated, I decided to head back to my starter crop farm and harvest some carrots instead. I gathered a bunch of carrots and started crafting them into golden carrots. These will be my new food source, and I'll save the golden apples for when I'm in battles. Now I'm set up with a reliable food source that'll keep my hunger bar full during all my future adventures. So it's time to gear up for what's next. Equipped with my shiny new god armor, I felt ready to tackle the blaze farm again. So back to the nether I went, heading straight for the fortress where the blaze spawner was. This time, I tried a new tactic. I covered the spawner with lava, hoping to slow down the blaze spawns. It didn't really work as planned, because they just kept coming. As I was mining out the area and building up the walls around the spawner, the blaze kept shooting at me, and I took some heavy hits and fell off the fortress a few times. But with my god armor, I didn't even pop a totem. Eventually, I managed to finish off the farm. I grinded out loads of blaze rods, perfect for brewing up some strength potions. And while I was in the nether and I had my looting 3 sword, I decided to test my luck and hunt some wither skeletons to gather the skulls. And after a couple battles, I finally collected 3 wither skulls. That means I can get a beacon soon. Back at the base, I brewed up some strength potions and started preparing for the wither fight. I was really nervous as I'd never fought the wither before, and I heard it was one of the hardest bosses in the game. To make things worse, I didn't have a bow, so I made sure I'd bring some milk to counteract the wither effect. I drank a strength potion just before spawning it. If I can pull this off, this will prove that I'm a strong player. I dug a big tunnel trying to calm my nerves. Then I spawned the wither. I ran back to avoid its explosion and drank a strength potion. It was go time. I charged in and began critting it out, and within 10 seconds, I defeated it. I only took 1 heart of damage. I think this just proves that I'm a strong player. After that not so epic battle, I grabbed the nether star and headed back to the base. I crafted and built a full iron beacon, and with it, I felt invincible. But then, I headed back into the nether, and I made my way over to the warped forest that we'd found earlier. On the way, I fell into lava, but thankfully, thanks to my god armor, I'm practically immortal. Once I arrived in the warped forest, I began hunting endermen until I had 2 stacks of ender pearls. I plan to use all those to find a stronghold and go end raiding before the end fight to get the 1-up on everyone else. After arriving back at the base, I mined up some cobblestone at the cobble gen and harvested bamboo. I crafted a load of bamboo blocks because I'm not going to have an elytra and I'm going to have to bridge from the main end island out to the outer islands, which is going to be a couple thousand blocks. Next, I enchanted a second set of diamond armor and tools, which I can use when end raiding, because if I fell in the void, I don't want to lose my god set. Then, I logged onto the SMP on my Bedrock Edition account, as I plan to use it for end raiding, because the render distance can go way higher, up to 72 chunks, meaning I'll be able to spot end cities easier, and I can also bridge really easy. I geared up with the spare diamond set that I just made, and gathered all the blocks and ender pearls. I crafted some Eyes of Ender and went searching for the stronghold. After running around for a while, I Following the Eyes of Ender, I dug down in hopes of hitting the stronghold, and luckily, I did. I quickly found the portal frame and filled it in. I jumped in, not expecting to find anything, however there was already a bridge that someone had made, so I followed it and ran all the way out to the End Islands. Because the bridge was made out of solid blocks, there were so many Endermen on the path, and I accidentally looked at one and it hit me. I was so worried I was going to get knocked off, but luckily I managed to stay on the path and ended up knocking it off. After making it to the outer End Islands, I grabbed some chorus fruit in case I fell in the void, and then began making my own bridges in different directions from the ones I had seen. And this paid off. I found an end city pretty quickly, but it had been looted. Still, I managed to get some shulkers on the sides of it. After a short amount of time exploring, I found a second city, and this one had a ship, meaning that if no one had looted it yet, I would get myself a set of wings. I entered the city and began killing as many shulkers as I could. When I still had the levitation effect, I floated over to the ship, where I got my own set of wings. Then I remembered to grab the dragon head as well. However, I had forgotten the fireworks, so I couldn't really use the elytra to fly around. Plus, I didn't have the enchants for it yet, so I didn't want to risk using it and breaking it. After getting the elytra, I headed back to the main bit of the end city to get some more shulkers, as I wanted to fill my entire ender chest with them for storage management. However, even though I got a lot of shulkers, I still wanted to explore more and collect more elytras in case I ended up losing one. I ended up bridging over the void from end city to end city, stacking up on elytras and shulkers until I felt that I had enough. I put everything into my ender chest and jumped into the void, so I'd respawn back at my base. I then switched back to my Java account, as I couldn't access any of the end loot until I got another ender chest. However, my first stop was to trade with a farmer villager, as this gave me a stack of apples, and I used the gold from my gold farm to get a stack of golden apples, which will save me in fights and sticky situations. Next, I headed into the nether in search of endermen, and also to gather some ender pearls for my ender chest. I first went over to the fortress where I'd killed some blazes and wither skeletons, and I managed to snag another wither skeleton skull. I then made my way to the warped forest where endermen commonly spawn, and after a few minutes of running around, I managed to obtain a stack of ender pearls. With my inventory full of ender pearls, I headed back to the base. I mined up some obsidian and crafted an ender chest, retrieving all the gear, shulker boxes, and most importantly, the elytra. I then, however, was told that netherite armor is not allowed on the server, meaning I couldn't wear my god set. And this wasn't really my fault, as the rule of no netherite armor was made 10 days after I joined the SMP, and it was in a separate Discord server in a different channel. It wasn't in the rules channel, it was in some other channel, like it was all hidden, and it wasn't really my fault. I talked to the owner about it, he said it was fine for me to keep the god set, but I wouldn't be able to wear it. So I was going to need to make a whole new set of armor. So I grinded out a new diamond god set with the same trims, but it sent me back over 2 stacks of diamonds, which was quite frustrating. And unfortunately, I don't know where the footage for that went, but after that, I AFK'd at the gold farm to gather up some more gold, which I'll use to craft more golden apples and carrots. I also continued breeding the turtles to get loads of scoots, which I'll use to make potions of Turtle Master. And after a while, my ender chest was completely full of shulkers, filled with everything I needed, from golden apples and carrots to strength and Turtle Master potions, even spare sets of gear and tools. I also had shulker boxes full of gunpowder, rockets, totems, everything I'll need. And now I can finally say that I am the strongest player on the Skycraft SMP.